Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I'm finally sharing my February bullet journal setup. And honestly, when I started planning this month, I wasn't really sure what theme to go with, since February is usually all about Valentine's Day, and I knew I didn't want to go too Valentine-y this time. So I wanted something more character, something a little more story-like and meaningful, instead of just hearts and pink everywhere. So after going back and forth for a while, I decided to go with a Princess and the Frog inspired theme. To me, it's such a beautiful love story, but it's also about hard work, dreams, and believing in yourself. That felt a lot more like the kind of February I wanted to create, romantic but not in an obvious way. So for this setup, I focused on a soft, cozy love story vibe with cute kawaii frogs and gentle colors rather than a traditional Valentine theme. So to start off the setup, I worked on the February cover page first. Since this theme is inspired by Princess and the Frog, I decided to create a princess frog and a prince frog peeking out together. I really like the idea of them peeking from the side because it makes the page feel playful and storybook-like instead of too formal. I kept the frog style very simple and kawaii, so it was easy to draw and still felt soft and cute. I also wanted the illustrations to feel light and fun without overcomplicating the page. For this February setup, I also wanted to keep things quick and simple because I've been quite busy with work lately and I didn't have a lot of extra time to fully plan everything or overthink the design, so I decided to just go with what I had in mind and enjoy the process. This setup is definitely more relaxed and spontaneous compared to my usual ones, but I still wanted to keep it the same cozy storybook vibe with a clear Princess and the Frog feeling throughout the pages. Sometimes I really enjoy setups like this, simple and easy and done at my own pace, while still keeping the theme consistent and meaningful. Since I wanted to write the February title in a vertical style, I decided not to use calligraphy this time. Instead, I went with a more fancy and playful font. I felt like this lettering style worked really well with the theme. It has soft curves at the ends, which gives it a slightly romantic feeling without being too bold. It also adds a subtle Valentine's vibe, even though I didn't want the whole setup to feel overly Valentine themed. To enhance that feeling a little more, I added some small doodles like hearts and stars around the lettering. I think these tiny details really help balance the page and made the title feel more fun and cohesive with the rest of the spread. I also added some soft pink dots behind the frogs just to give the page a little more warmth and color. I didn't want the background to feel too empty, but I also didn't want it to be too busy as well, so the dots were a really simple way to balance the page and tie everything together. After finishing the February lettering, I added some soft shading just to give it a little more depth. Once that was done, I moved on to the left side spread, which is my quote page for the month. For this page, I drew a lily pad with a lotus flower and I added a few fireflies and stars to give it a more magical storybook feeling. Since Princess and the Frog is also about friendship, I really wanted to include fireflies as a small nod of ray. On the lily pad, I wrote the quote, "Hard work brings me closer to my dream." This quote is very meaningful to me and I wanted this page to feel like a reminder rather than just a decoration. Lately, this has felt especially important because thanks to all of your support, my channel has reached the YouTube Partner Program and I'm only a few watch hours away from being fully monetized. So I'm honestly so grateful for every single person who has supported me, commented on my videos and stayed with me along the way. I recognize so many familiar names and your encouragement is truly the reason I've kept going. So this page is a little memory for me to remind myself that even slow progress matters and that all the effort, patience and support really do add up. After thinking about that, I couldn't help but reflect on my own journey with YouTube as well. In the beginning, I only had one channel and things were actually going quite well, but then I went on a short trip and wasn't able to upload for about 9 days, I think. And when I came back, something felt different. My views weren't the same as before and I honestly thought that the channel had completely died. At that time, I didn't really understand how things worked and I felt discouraged, so I made the decision to start a new channel, thinking that starting over was the only option. Later on, I realized that my original channel hadn't really disappeared at all. It was still there, quietly continuing, and even though I hadn't uploaded for almost a month. Okay, I'll leave that thought here for now. This is the final look of my February cover page, and I honestly really love how it turned out. The soft colors, simple details, and the playful frog illustrations came together really nicely, and it feels very true to the theme I had in mind. Moving on to the next page, this is my February monthly calendar page, and for this spread, I didn't want to go with a very bold or traditional calendar layout. Instead, I decided to keep it fun and playful by creating individual boxes for each day from the 1st to the 28th. I wrote the days on lily pads to keep everything cohesive with the Princess and the Frog theme, and I added a few Bayou-inspired details like Ray and the alligator to bring a bit more life into the page without making it feel too busy. For the daily boxes, I decided to keep the layout playful by mixing things up a little. Some of the boxes are fully colored in, and while others are just outlined, and I decided to use two different colors for this. One is green and one is pink. I chose to add pink intentionally because there was already a lot of green on this page. With the alligator, Ray, and the lily pads, and even the February title, everything was starting to feel very green. Adding pink helped balance the page and break up the colors a bit. I also really like how pink and green work together. It keeps the spread feeling fun and playful instead of everything looking too green. From here, I will let you enjoy the rest of the coloring process. While I'm coloring this page, I wanted to go back to something I was talking about earlier, which is my YouTube journey. After I realized that my original channel was still quietly growing, even when I hadn't uploaded for a while, I felt really conflicted. I didn't want to abandon that channel, especially because it already had more views and more subscribers than my new YouTube channel. At the same time, my second channel felt more active. Even though it was growing more slowly, it felt fresh and I found myself enjoying creating content there more. For a while, I tried to keep both channels going just to see how things would turn out, but over time it became really overwhelming. Managing two channels, staying consistent, and balancing everything with work was honestly exhausting. Eventually, I made the decision to let go of one channel and focus fully on just one. This channel, the one you're watching now, is actually my second channel, and I decided to put all my energy here instead of trying to split myself in two. Back then, this channel didn't have as many views as my original one. The subscribers were growing, but the watch hours are still far behind because it was new. But I realized that constantly focusing on numbers was taking away the joy of creating, so I decided to stop worrying so much and just keep doing what I love, believing that if I stay patient and consistent, I'll eventually reach my goals one step at a time. Okay, so now I outlined a few small sections to keep things practical. I added a space for important dates so I can quickly see birthdays or special days at a glance, and a note section for everything I need to jot down during the month. I wanted this calendar to be both cute and functional. And just a small reminder, my drawings aren't perfect. I'm still learning, especially when it comes to drawing chibi or kawaii characters, and sometimes my lines can look a little bit wobbly, but I'm okay with that. I'm more of a digital drawing person rather than on paper, so just to let you know that. This setup isn't about being perfect or overly artistic. For me, it's more about enjoying the process and creating something that feels personal and usable. I'm sharing this to show my thought process, how I choose my layouts, and how I bring a theme together in a way that works for my own journaling style. I hope this gives you some ideas you can adapt in your own way, whether it's the theme, the layout, or even just the feeling of the page. Also, at the bottom of the page, I added another quote that says, "Never lose sight of what's really important." I felt like this really connects to Tiana's story, because while she worked hard towards her dream, she also learned that success means more than just reaching a goal. It's about remembering your values, the people around you, and the reason you started in the first place. For me, this quote is a gentle reminder to stay consistent and focused while also appreciating the journey and what truly matters along the way. Okay, so I'll finish up the rest of the coloring and let the process play out. Here's a closer look at my February monthly calendar before moving on to the next spread. The next page is my habit tracker page. As you know, I really love tracking my sleep and I did this in January as well, so I decided to continue with the same system for February. For the title, I kept things very simple and used a similar calligraphy style to the rest of the setup. And I added a few small fireflies and some stars around the title to keep it soft and on theme. This is a layout I really enjoy using, so I decided to stick with it again for February. Along the vertical side of the page, I wrote the days from the 1st to the 28th. Across the top, I added my time scale starting from 6 p.m. and going through to 2 p.m. so I can easily track my sleep during the AM and PM sections. To decorate the page a little, I added a few voodoo-inspired details at the bottom like a potion bottle and a small mask. I wanted to keep these elements minimal so they wouldn't distract from the tracker itself. Once the layout was finished, I colored in the drawings and added some soft pink dots in the background. This helped the page feel less empty while still keeping everything light and simple. From here, I'll let you enjoy the rest of the coloring process. Moving on to the next page, this is my habit tracker for February. For this spread, I kept the layout simple and consistent with the rest of the setup. I used the same lettering style for the header as my sleep tracker and added a few small details like stars and fireflies to keep everything cohesive. For the habit trackers, I choose to track just 3 habits for this month. I think these 3 are the most important ones for me. One is skincare, nose band, and exercise. and I designed each tracker as a lily pad to keep everything simple and consistent with the Princess and the Frog theme. Using lily pads felt very natural for this setup and helped tie the page together nicely. At the bottom of the page, I added a small kawaii frog catching a fish. I know this detail isn't directly from Princess and the Frog, but I didn't mind mixing in a little creative freedom here. For me, this setup is more about being inspired by the theme rather than recreating it exactly. I just wanted to add something cute and playful to give the page a bit more personality while still keeping the overall frog and lily pad vibe consistent. Okay, so I'll leave this section with just the coloring and music. Here's the final look at my habit tracker spreads, and I honestly really love how these pages turned out. I like that they are simple and not too drawing heavy, but still feel cute and cohesive with the theme. And the final pages for this month are my weekly spreads. Since I wanted this setup to be quick and easy, I decided not to create a separate budget or expense tracker page this time. At the left top of the page, I added a small February calendar, just so I can see the month at a glance while planning my weeks. For this spread, I also kept the drawings very minimal. I decided to only include the Prince Frog and the Princess Frog and place them on both sides of the page. The Dutch door sits in the middle, so when the page is closed, the frogs came together, and when I flip it, a different pairing appears. I like this idea because it keeps the spread fun and interactive without adding too many drawings. I wanted the focus to stay on functionality with just a few character elements to bring the theme through. And instead of creating separate weekly layouts for each week, I decided to keep one main weekly layout and reuse it for all of the 4 weeks. So I don't usually write very much in my weeklies. This works really well for me. And to tell each week apart, I'll be color coding them. For example, week 1 might be written in one color, week 2 in another, and so on. This keeps things simple while still making each week feel distinct. For this part, I outlined the boxes freehand instead of using a ruler. I find this much quicker, especially when I want to keep the setup simple and relaxed. The lines aren't perfectly straight, and that's something I'm completely okay with. I actually really like the slightly imperfect look. It feels more natural and handmade to me. Since this month's setup is meant to be quick and easy, this approach worked perfectly. It helped me focus more on the process instead of trying to make everything look perfectly lined up. For the frog colors on this page, I used the same shades as the cover page to keep everything consistent. The prince frog is a slightly deeper green, while the princess frog is a softer, lighter shade. Using the same color palette throughout the setup helps the pages feel more connected, and I think it gives the whole journal a more cohesive and finished look. For the color coding on this page, I colored in the lily pads using slightly deeper shades. I find that darker colors make it easier to see my writings later, especially when I'm planning quickly. After finishing the color coding, this is the part where I cut out the Dutch door. It's one of my favorite details in this setup. It adds a bit of interaction to the page and makes the weekly layout more enjoyable to use. And just a quick note, I'm sorry if my hair keeps getting in the way here. My hairband actually fell off while I was filming, and I didn't notice it until I was editing, so I hope it's not too distracting. Okay, after cutting out the Dutch door and rounding the corners, I move on to setting up the rest of the weeks. Here I'm redrawing the princess frog. I tried to keep it the same as before, but it turned out a little different. Keeping characters consistent can be tricky, so I'm still learning and figuring it out as I go. For this part, I didn't realize that the camera had stopped recording because my phone storage was full, so this session went off camera. I'm really sorry about that, and the process here is exactly the same as before, so nothing new was missed. As I mentioned earlier, I didn't create separate budget pages for this month. Instead, I added small budget sections directly into my weekly spreads. I included spaces for fixed expenses and a simple budget overview, which helps me see everything at a glance. Doing it this way saves both time and pages, and it also makes budgeting feel more manageable for me. I think this layout is very functional, especially for a quick setup, and honestly, I'm really loving how it turned out. So far, this has become one of my favorite weekly layouts that I've done. For the final touches, I added some soft pink dots in the background so the pages don't feel too clean or empty. It also helps tie everything back to the cover page and keeps the theme consistent throughout the setup. And this is the final look at my February setup. I wanted to share a few close-up views of the spreads and show how everything came together. Here's a closer look at the Dutch door detail where the two frogs come together when I flip the page. And now here's a final flip through of my February bullet journal setup. I really hope you enjoy setting up February with me. This month's theme was a little different for me, and even though I kept things simple and quick, I genuinely had so much fun putting these pages together. I hope this video gave you some inspiration, whether it's from the theme, the layouts, the little details, or even just the calm and cozy feeling of watching someone journal. And if you're setting up your own journal alongside this video, I hope it made the process a little more enjoyable for you. Thank you so much for spending your time here with me and for all the support you continue to give my channel. It truly means more to me than I can explain. I wish you a wonderful month ahead, and I hope the rest of the year brings you lots of creativity, motivation, and moments you can be proud of. I'll see you again in my very next video. Bye!